Hi, it's Nell, and I am continuing on with the Growing Succulent Indoors series, and this one is 6 important things to know about growing succulents indoors. So as always, there is a blog post to go along with this video. I'm just going to skim the point, so look for the details in the post. It'll be at the top of the description box below and also on our website, JoyUsGarden.com. And if you like videos about gardening indoors and out, be sure to subscribe, and I would love it if you would give this video a thumbs up. Thanks so much. Now, these are not problems you may have. These are just things that are good to know, especially if you're a beginning gardener. I am going to do a video and a post on problems you might have, but these are just some good things to know right off the bat before you even start to grow them. And I'm not going to make it more complicated than it is, but I will say that the first 2 things are the most important to know. And we're going to start with light or exposure. Succulents do best with bright, natural light. I would say moderate to highlight, near but not in a west, south, or even east window. I have east windows in my home. They are bright because I'm in Tucson where the sun shines a lot. So for you, it might be more like near a south or a west window. If you have them in too low light, they're going to get a little stunted, a little pale. They aren't going to do as well, and they're not going to grow as fast. So for instance, a bathroom with no natural light is not a good place to have a succulent indoors at all. And conversely, in a hot window isn't a good place either because they will burn. So you just have to find that nice happy medium that's a bright, natural, moderate to high light for them, and they will do their best. So on to the second point, which is watering. And I'm doing a whole separate video on this, so I'm just going to skim it here because it is very important. I will say that succulents store water in their fleshy leaves and stems and roots, so you can overwater them very easily. Less is more, as I always say. Easy on the liquid love when it comes to succulents. I always let mine totally dry out before I water them again. But again, there's a whole post and video dedicated to this, so look for that. On to number 3, which is fertilizing and feeding. Now, succulents don't need much, if at all, but I do worm compost and compost mine in the spring along with all my other plants. For the succulents, I do a very thin layer. I don't do it heavy at all, and as I said, I do it in spring so it lasts throughout this season. Now, I am in a pretty hot, well, actually I'm in a very hot climate, so I like to fertilize my plants through the season, give them a little extra boost. And what I like personally for succulents, I don't use them all together, but I'll use one month, one in a month and a half, and then other one in like a month and a half. I like liquid kelp, I like maxi, and I also like Eleanor's, and it seems to keep them very happy. So I do it a few times throughout the year. For you, one time throughout the years, if you don't have as much light, if yours aren't growing as fast. And some people like to use fish emulsion on succulents, something like that. And there are also specific fertilizers for succulents. So you have a whole lot to choose from when it comes to fertilizing and feeding. But it's also important to know not to overdo it. Do not over fertilize your succulents because they don't need it. And the 4th is soil. It's very important that the soil for succulents is very well drained and aerated. A lot of succulent mixes will have either small rock added in, pumice, I do pumice and cocoa chips to amend the drainage in my succulent mix. I have a DIY succulent and cactus mix, which I have done a post and a video for. That'll be in the blog post. There are ones that you can buy online too. I have one I'm going to show you in the soil mix because I am doing, or the soil video, because I'm doing a video dedicated to soil and all good things about that. But you can also use potting soil, but be really careful because potting soil is heavier, so I would not recommend that if you're new because it stays too wet. You have to add a whole bunch to it. I would use a mix that is dedicated to succulents and cacti, and that way you will ensure that yours will do well. Number 5 is that you don't need to rush to repot your succulent. If you think it's in a too small a pot, or if there's roots coming out the bottom, or if it looks stressed or whatever, you can repot it. Some succulents come bare roots, so of course you do need to pot them. But most of them grow just fine tight in their pots, and they're okay that in the pot they're in. This is my dancing bones here. I planted it in this pot with no drainage 3 years ago. It's still doing just fine, so you don't have to feel as though you have to go, oh my gosh, I have to repot this right now, because you don't. So as with the taller ones, as they grow taller, or if they're clumping and you think they need more room in the pot, then feel free. And the last thing is that choice does matter, because there are quite a few succulents that are better suited to growing indoors. They're suited to lower light, so those would be good choices for you unless you have a lot of really bright light in your home. So if you have gotten a succulent and it just hasn't done well and you're like, oh my gosh, what's going on here, it could just have been the choice of the succulents. So you can look at the blog post that I have about choosing succulents and pots. It also has it's going to have a list of some lower light succulents in there, the ones that are more tried and true for growing indoors. Again, check the blog post that goes along with this. It'll have more details in there for you, but I hope you have found this to be helpful, especially if you are new to the world of succulent gardening and just starting out. As I said, we don't need to make it any more complicated, just a few good things to know. So let's get into our indoor gardens, our indoor succulent gardens, and make our worlds a more beautiful place. As always, I thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next succulent video. Bye!